I chose to speak a little bit about something in the Parsha about the Chet HaEgel, the sin of the calf, and of course a very, very fascinating and equally perplexing event that's recorded in the Torah. Of course, we know that we never shy away from reality, and unlike Lahavdil, Elef Avdallah's other religions, where we fully fess up to our chisronos, our mistakes, and we use those as opportunities of learning. And we see throughout Tanakh that point, that Lahavdil, Tanakh is not a history book, but it offers us opportunities and lessons to help us grow in our avodas Hashem. At the same time, not to sound apologetic, we also do want to put mistakes and errors in the context that is appropriate, and point out that things are not always as they seem, and mistakes that are made are not always exactly as they seem. So there's lots to talk about when we talk about the Chet HaEgel. It's too much for the amount of time that we have, too much for the person sitting in the seat as well. So I chose what I thought were a few interesting ideas. I want to give you just an overview of what I hope to talk about, and some of the questions that may come up, and there hopefully will be some opportunity for some interactive if there are questions that you want to bring up. But I'll just give you a little bit of an overview of what I hope to talk about. So we'll start by reading just a few psukim, talking about the Chet HaEgel, the sin. Some of the questions that I want to touch on are: was this avodah zarah? Was this idolatry? Was what the nation was involved in avodah zarah? And when I mentioned the word nation, was this something that the entire nation was involved in? Simple reading of the psukim would seem to indicate this was a global catastrophe. Also, how do we understand Aaron's response? It seems quite perplexing if, as we'll see, the leader in the number two in Moshe's absence, how can he seemingly go along so readily with their desires? Wouldn't the need of a leader be to rebuke and point out error when there is error? Another thing, how do we understand this tremendous yerida, this tremendous spiritual decline? If we assume that this was in fact idolatry, how can the nation stumble so quickly and so drastically in such a short amount of time? I also want to jump, and again, it's just not enough time to really delve into everything. There are lots of points in between that we could touch on, but I want to jump ahead afterwards and talk a little bit about the Luchos Shnios, a beautiful piece that I saw from Moshe Feinstein, to address the issue of how was the remedy, how was that a refuah to the makkah, so to speak? How did the resolution of giving another set of Luchos to Klal Yisrael, how was that a correction for the sin, or was it connected to the sin? And what was different about the Luchos Shnios, and how was that something that related to the Chet HaEgel? So let's read the psukim briefly. Again, I'm sorry that I didn't give out sources, and forgive me if I'm oversimplifying things, but at any point if I'm going over something, you need a little clarity, please wave your hand. That'll be fine. So just very quickly, just the first few psukim. And this was, of course, we know that Moshe Rabbeinu went up to receive the Torah Har Sinai. He was there for 40 days. And Vayar Ha'am, in Perek Lamed Beis, it starts, Vayar Ha'am, Ki Baishish Moshe L'redes Min Ha'ar. So the nation saw that Moshe, Rashi translates, he delayed. They saw that Moshe was delaying in coming down from the mountain. Vayikohel Ha'am al Aaron, so they gathered to Aaron. Vayumar Elav Kum Asalonu Elohim Asher Yehu Lefanenu. So they said, please bring us now the word here, Elohim, is not, as we'll see, it's the profane, it's not referring to the Ribono Shel Olam, but they're asking for some kind of power. I'll leave it vague like that, and we'll describe from the Rishonim, from the commentaries, that again, it wasn't that they're asking for a god, but they want some kind of power that's go Asher Yehu Lefanenu. We'll touch on those words also with some of the commentaries. That's significant, that will go before us, because Moshe, who took us out of Mitzrayim, we don't know where he is. Lo yadanu mehayalo, we don't know where he is. We'll touch on that as well in the commentaries. What does that mean? So Vayom Aleihim Aaron. So what did Aaron do? Was there rebuke? Did he tell them that they were wrong? Seemingly not. What's the first thing that he says? Parku nizme hazav asher ba'aznei nesheichem. Give me the gold that's in the gold jewelry of your wives, your nesheichem, benechem of noseichem, of your children. Va'aviu elai, bring it to me. Vayisparku kol ha'am, so they quickly gathered the gold. That's nizme hazav asher ba'azneihem. Vayaviu el Aaron, and they brought it to Aaron. We'll read one more pasuk before we delve into the commentaries here. And Vayikach miyadam vayatzar isa b'cheret vayaseu egel. So he took all of the gold, he put it in some kind of a scarf or something. Vayaseu egel masecha, and he made a molten calf. Vayumer ela Elohecha Yisrael asher halucha meretz Mitzrayim. This is again seemingly as a deity that took you out of Mitzrayim. So again, lots of questions that we could ask here. I don't know if anyone wants to offer a question. If not, I'll quickly recap some of the questions that I'm hoping to address.
Well, the first, you already gave away. What I would have said is like, I've heard the teretz that he was just trying to stall the people. So, that doesn't seem the best way to stall the people, by actually participating in building what seemingly appears to be a Avodah Zarah. Why not just say, whoa, this is a Avodah Zarah, we can't do this.
Right.
We have to have a munah that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to come down, and let's wait.
Right.
Because that's what he is supposed to do.
Right.
They would have killed him like Korah.
So let him die. There are certain times that we're supposed to die, right?
Very good. What about so very good. So let's bring up these questions. Why not tell them to delay? Right. We'll touch on the fact. We'll see in the commentaries, as was pointed out correctly. We see already a precedent that the nation may not take too kindly to suggestions. We'll see that there was murder involved in this process. But again, the rebuttal also is the point is well taken. What about Yahareg Val Yavor? We know that there are the three cardinal sins that a person is supposed to give up his life, and Avodah Zarah, idolatry is one of them. Why doesn't Aaron tell him as it is? And if they kill him, they kill him. And what greater Kiddush Hashem the leader has to show? And we know that there were people not on the level of Aaron. We have to remember who Aaron was. Aaron was not only a leader, he was a Navi. He was a Navi before Moshe was a Navi.
So what kind of an example is
he should be on the level that if the halacha would require him to sacrifice his life al Kiddush Hashem, then let him do that. Okay, good, very good. So these questions we're Hashem we're going to read to deal with. So first, let's look. We want to look at a few mafarshim. I have about 5 or 6 here on this Indian that I want to touch on. So first, we'll look at a couple of points, 2 or 3 things that Rashi says, just to understand a little bit again. Where are they coming from with such a how are they so off base? Seemingly, when we just read the psukim, it seems so puzzling, their reaction. Were you raising your hand? Right? Okay. So the first Rashi I want to look at, just right at the beginning of this shtickle here, he points out Ki Boshesh Moshe, that he delayed in coming. So he explains Ki Kisha Ola Moshe Lahar Omar Lahem L'Seif Arba'im Yom. It's interesting. Hashem didn't tell them. Moshe told them. Moshe said that he would come at the end of 40 days. Right? It's also a remez, Boshesh is Bo Shesh. He told them he was going to come in the 6th hour, so he told them precisely when he was going to come. And they counted incorrectly. They thought that the day he went up was included in the minyan, and therefore they erred in the calculation. Parenthetically, it's interesting, and that's a whole class into it of itself. It's interesting how many times you see in the history of Klal Yisrael there were major mistakes that were made that all had to do with timing. Right? We could start at the beginning with Adam and Chava. The Zohar says that there would have been a permission to eat from the Eitz Hadash if they had waited. Okay, a few more hours until Shabbos, it would have been permitted. I believe I didn't see it inside. When my beard grows a little longer, but so I understand that's what the Zohar says. We know in the Nevi'im it says also with Amalek, without killing the king of Amalek, that Shaul was criticized for that greatly and punished. There are many examples in history where it seems to be a matter of timing. It's a very fascinating concept, but beyond the scope for now. Also in Rashi he points out here, Kizem Moshe Ish, a little later on in Rashi, Kamin de Moshe Heralehem Satan. Right, so the Satan was actively involved here. He was trying to also coerce them into sinning, and he showed them an image of Moshe, as if an image of Moshe floating. I think is the way it's commonly understood in a coffin or something like that. That they saw an image of him. That he was dead. So this is again to add to the understanding of how they could come with such a notion that they need to do something radical. Why they needed to do this, we'll still get to.
One quick question.
Yeah.
How many people do we believe were there by Har Sinai?
Right, so we know that there were, Shishim Ribu, so just the men of a certain age, it was 600,000.
Right.
Okay, so you put that together with all the women and children, we're talking about several million.
So you also
people.
alluded to the other question that I have. There's 600,000.
Right.
Right, so are 600,000 participating in building the Egel?
Okay, excellent. So we'll get to that.
600,000 also the ones who decided they all collectively had the wrong timing?
Right. Okay, very good. So source number 6 that I hope to speak about, this I'm just using as a watch. So the source number 6, the Malbim, stay tuned, he's going to deal with this as well.
But you mentioned
how many people were...
About the vision that they saw in the sky, the death of the Moshe Rabbeinu.
Right.
So I assume that Aaron was kind of trying to put things off, waiting for the right time for Moshe to return, so that this wouldn't happen.
Oh, very good. So let's go right into that. The next Rashi I want to see deals with this point exactly. Because, again, this gets back to the question I think that you asked before, like, why not tell them to, let's wait a little bit? Why jump right into, okay, let's get started. Okay, I need your gold. Come on, we got to move. Okay, so just the opposite is what Rashi tells us was the intention of Aaron. Rashi in Dibra Maskal Ba'aznei Neshechem. Okay, and maybe I'll just preface Rashi's words with my own crude analogy, and I don't mean any disservice to our nashim tzidkanios, to our wives, because we're going to see that Rashi points out from this, their shavach, their praise. But can I just imagine, gentlemen, if we're a little bit tight on funds, and we have a couple of options. We can go to the bank. We can try to get a personal loan from a friend, or I've got it. I want to give you an idea. Go to your wives and tell them, honey, I'm sure you'll understand. Please give me the engagement ring I gave you and all the jewelry over the years. Please give it to me now. I need to go to the pawn shop and I need cash for tuition. Okay, I would advise wearing a helmet. I would advise a life insurance policy, a bulletproof vest, a number of things. I don't advise that, and I don't think our wives would take too kindly. Okay, that was exactly what Rashi points out. That was exactly the kavana, the intention of Aaron. Omar Aaron Beliboy. Aaron said to himself, "Hanashim v'yaladim chasim b'tachshiteihem." They're going to want to hold on to these tafshich and remember how the nation was. They didn't want to go through the Yam Suf, so there was a lot of booty, there were a lot of spoils there to gather. They valued these things. Shema Yisakev Adavar. So he was hoping maybe this will cause a delay. And in the meantime, Moshe Rabbeinu is going to come. It was a stalling tactic. He was delaying. Vehem lohim tinu. Now listen to the amazing thing that Rashi brings from the Medrash Tanchuma. So the wives told them nothing doing, and again, Rashi doesn't go into it, but other Mefarshim speak about this was the shvach, the praise of the nashim. It wasn't only, some Mefarshim understand, it wasn't only that they were holding on to their jewelry, but they wanted no part of this, and this will again get into the idea how many people really were involved in this sin. So what did these people do? Whoever it was who was involved in this sin, we're not waiting. Fine, we're going to take off our Rolexes and we're going to give them to get started in this endeavor. So again, Rashi understands in Pasuk Beis that this was a stalling tactic. Let's see one more Rashi before we go on to the next of the Mefarshim, the Ramban. Rashi in Pasuk Hey.
Again, that just seems to be like a deceitful stalling tactic. It's a stalling tactic as opposed to, we can't do this.
Okay, very good, very good. Yeah, you're right. So it's a stalling tactic, but why isn't he just coming straight out and rebuking them? In a way, it's like...
He's a leader. It seems like, from a Mars Iron situation, people are going to think, hey, this is okay. It's coming from our end.
Okay, excellent, very good. So I just to the others here, this was not timed. This is not timed ahead of time, but it's perfectly. The questions are leading right into the Mefarshim in the order that I was planning on seeing them. So Rashi in Pasuk Hey on Vayomer Chagla Hashem Machar, when he explains. Actually, I don't think I went this far in the Psukim, but after he gathers the gold and he makes the egel, says Chagla Hashem, there will be a holiday for Hashem tomorrow. So Rashi points out there one of the things, a few things that Rashi says. Dvarim harbe ra. Aaron, he saw many things. Ra chur ben achaysei sheheya moichicham. Chur had rebuked, as you pointed out. Chur did rebuke them. Okay, initially, when the idea came up, before the Torah records. Again, the Torah doesn't record every single, back and forth of everybody in the. That's not the job of the Torah. So, Chur ben achaysei sheheya moichicham. He rebuked them. What was the answer?
They killed him. What
happened? Vaharguhu. They killed him.
I'm sorry, who was this?
Chur. It was Ben Achoso. Chur was Aaron's relative, one of the leaders, and he rebuked the nation, and what he got for that was he was killed. Okay? And Rashi points out that's also why he went further, and after building the Egel, so he built the Mizbeach. And again, what does Rashi point out from building the Mizbeach? Again, this was another stalling tactic, right? Zemevi tzror, zemevi even. They're going to have to go and they're going to have to gather the sand and the stones. The name says malachta nasui b'vas achas teich ani boina isai v'nis umisatzel b'malachti, and I'm going to, he's not going to do this so quickly. Okay, ben kach Moshe ba, and again he's hoping that in the meantime, after all of this is done, before we do whatever it is that the nation is urging for, Moshe is going to come. So again, but an important thing that Rashi points out here in Pasuk Hey is, yes, that the rebuke tactic he saw was already tried and it failed. Okay, so we could ask ourselves, okay, well listen, if it's the right thing to do, if this is really Avodah Zarah, and if it's really Yahar Gvel Yavor, it doesn't make a difference.
Keep on rebuking.
You keep on, you rebuke again, and if he dies, and then, there will be another leader who will come, and hopefully, and maybe they will get the message.
So it seems like there's only one of two choices at this point. Either, Lahavdil, Aaron is like fearing for his life, and he's choosing the weak below path to say, I don't want to go like him.
Right.
Or he's saying, if I rebuke them, yes, I will die, and we will be no further in stalling them. Like, if my rebuke could stall them, let's do it. If it won't stall them, I'll die, and then obviously no one else is going to be able to stall them.
Right.
So maybe I'll fabricate this Misa to get them to hold off.
Right.
So hopefully it's the latter.
Right, very good. Okay, so let's see the Ramban. Okay, the Ramban on the words. The Ramban is medaik in the words, as we read before, that they wanted some kind of leader, asher yelchul, the lashon of the pasuk, asher yelchul lefaneinu, that's going to go before us. And the Ramban understands. The Ramban understands that this was definitely not Avodah Zarah. What was happening here was not an urging to abandon the Ribono Shel Olam, the Master of the universe who took them out of Mitzrayim, but they needed another manhig. They wanted another leader. This is the mahalach of the Ramban. I'm not implying that Rashi holds differently, but the Ramban says this very clearly.
Aaron's intention was not to make an eagle. So if we're looking after the fact that an eagle was made, therefore how should do it? That was never his intention. So it was never his intention. There was no reason that he had to give up his wife in order to prevent it.
Exactly.
I didn't hear that.
Well, I'll read the Ramban, and again he's going to say, since this wasn't really a request for a replacement of the Rabbonu Shalom, it wasn't idolatry, and therefore there was no need for Aaron to give up his life. This is what the Ramban is going to say, explicitly or implicitly. Let's read a few of the words of the Ramban. Ki biadua shalohayu Yisrael Svurim Shemoshe hu ha'elokim. Certainly, they understood that Moshe wasn't Hashem. They understood that clearly. From everything that happened in Egypt, okay, there was no confusion that maybe this is all Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, they understood clearly that the Rabbonu Shalom was behind everything. V'shehu b'kocho asa lehem ha'osos v'amosim. That really the Rabbonu Shalom was behind everything that Moshe, who was the reluctant to use the word intermediary, but he was the one who was the person who was the leader, who was given that task by Hashem. Uma tam sheyomru kevin shahalach Moshe mimenu nasa Elokim. So what was the reason for them to say, now that Moshe is gone, let's make us quote unquote? What does Elokim mean here?
I'm sorry to be the fly in your ointment here, but if they're looking for a new intermediary, wouldn't logic hold that Aaron should be that person?
Okay, excellent, great. So why not make Aaron?
But let's not go to humans anymore. Moshe Rabbeinu is a human.
Right.
I know. Let's make a calf.
Right.
It seems illogical.
Right. Okay. So we'll get to that as well. That's going to be in the next source in the Das Kenim Balatosos.
He's coming to that.
After the Ramban, we'll see the next source. We'll address this issue. So hang on. Okay. Matam sheyomer ukev inshallah Moshe mimenu nasa. Okay. Oh, ki b'ferish amro. Elohim asher yelchu lefanenu. I should be really saying him. Elohim asher yelchu lefanenu. That this power that should go before us. Lo sheyu nostim lehem chayim ba'olam hazeh or ba'olam haba. They're not talking about some power to lead them that is the source of their life. V'hayu mavakshim Moshe acher. They're asking for a different leader. Amru Moshe shahur lanu haderech b'Mitzrayim v'adheina. Right? Moshe, the one who led us through Mitzrayim. He is lost to us. So we need another leader. They need someone else to lead us. One more point that I want to bring from the Ramban before I address your question in the next of the Mefarshim. And again, I just want to, gauging my time, 10:30 is when we're stopping officially? Okay. So, the Ramban in another point says, okay, and he brings a proof to this, okay, to this point, that what do you see, what happens when Moshe does come? Do they say, sorry, you had your chance, but you know what, we chose another God. We chose something that's more powerful, right? You know, like a lot of the religions that, their gods would fight with one another. One day, I guess the clouds would cover the sun, and so they would drop the God of the sun, and the God of the clouds is strong. That didn't happen here. What happened as soon as Moshe came? Okay, when they saw Moshe come down, miyad heinichu es egel. Right? They left it. Aaron, what did he do? He burned it. Did they kill Aaron for destroying their God? Right? No, they left it. They had no intention. The Ramban brings here a very clear indication, as was pointed out. This was not a God for them. This was a yearning for having some other leader. So now let's go to the Das HaKenim, because the question really, it begs the question. So wouldn't Aaron be the logical next leader? Why now go to creating some kind of form? Why not go to Aaron? So you see here, incredibly, perhaps also the Anivis. Incidentally, the Das HaKenim and the Baal Tosfos, again, these are the Rishonim, the generation of the Tosafis, the Baal Tosfos. So they point out again that clearly this was not Avodah Zarah. And in Pasuk Hey, I believe it's in Pasuk Hey. Pardon me. No, it's not there. So I'll just read from my notes. I can't find it at this point. Oh, I'm sorry. Here it is. Parkwood. Okay. Aaron l'shem shemaim niskaven Omar im Omer lehem kolev v'nachshon yi rosh aleichem. So first of all, he's not mentioning himself. He said, well, let's make some of the other leaders. Let's say Kolev or Nachshon be the leader. Okay, so Moshe's gone. You're saying you need a leader. Okay, so there are other good leaders, great leaders, right? Im yamichu aleim. What's going to happen if I appoint Kolev or Nachshon to lead them? K'sheyavo Moshe, because Aaron knows Moshe is coming, right? When he does come, Yeridu migadluso. This is going to now start fighting. So wait a second. Do we have to go back to Moshe? These were, interim leaders, but now do we dismiss them? Okay, it's an interesting shaila also for another discussion. What happens if you let's say have a new Rav and then the other Rav comes back? Is there a precedent here? So that's okay. So maybe this is it's going to cause machlokas. Okay, the Jews are not going to have a dispute about this, and they're going to have differences of opinions. It's going to come to murder. This is not going to be a simple machlokas. Okay, what if he himself? We would all say Aaron would be the next logical leader. Okay, we know that in fact that's what happened. He was the malamakum for Moshe. Okay, Moshe is going to come down and he's going to look at me askant. I'm a little bit delayed in your cheshbon, and now you're taking my place. What kind of a Talmud are you? You want to be my disciple, that you should be the next leader? What is this? Again, his intention was, I'll delay them, I'll occupy them in these things. Ad sheyavoy Moshe. Okay, that's why he told them, Parku, Lefisha Hanashim Chasus al Tachshitem. Again, he brings this idea that these were delaying tactics. Again, just to circle, to make sure we came back to some of the other questions. And we understand now, yeah?
A question on that. That would explain why Aaron wouldn't want to appoint somebody else. It doesn't explain why the people wouldn't want to appoint somebody else. Because from their perspective, Moshe is gone. So it would make sense for them to appoint someone. From our perspective, what you said makes a lot of sense. What you said makes a lot of sense. But from the perspective of the people, they should still want to appoint some other person as opposed to... Right.
That is a good question. Now again, when we're going to jump down to source number 6, and I'll just cheat a little bit, give you a sneak preview. We'll see that since we're not exactly talking about the entire nation. Maybe this even makes the question bigger. That is, errants and having this aberration in their idea of what should happen. So presumably, many people should be level-headed, and why shouldn't they be asking for this? It could be that they also, maybe it would just be a big machlokas over who should be the next leader. But I don't know. It's a good question. Maybe we'll come back and we'll see if we have an answer by the end to this particular question. But again, just to summarize so far what we're seeing, we see clearly the commentaries seem to be unanimous, or many seem to hold this opinion that this was not a case of idolatry. This was a case of lacking leadership, and they felt that they needed this intermediary to help them to take the place of Moshe in order to lead them. We see from Aaron's standpoint that he was trying to delay them. He saw a precedent that at least some people were going so crazy about this that it was leading to murder. They were not going to be open. They were not going to be receptive to rebuke. Right? There was already another leader who was killed. And again, since this wasn't idolatry, there was no need for him to take this stand of rebuke, to let himself be killed, because this was not idolatry, it was not Yarag Vel Yavor, and therefore he chose this tactic. Okay.
What did they think? When it came to Aaron said, bring in gold. They want a leader. What's it going to do with the gold that's going to make a leader out of it? I mean, even in the end, and I know it wasn't Aaron's intention to make the Egel, but what kind of leader was that? Okay, even though they say he was moving, but he couldn't communicate. What kind of leader was that?
Right. It's true. It is very perplexing. Maybe we can look in last week's parsha for some kind of a mahalach. The Urim V'Tumim and the Choshen. There was an idea that the Rebbeinu Shalom chose to communicate through Klal Yisrael it was only Moshe who had a direct two-way radio, so to speak. The other Nevi'im, the Nevu was very different, and other leaders was very different. There was this concept of using even objects in a way, that the stones would light up and communicate things. So I'm just suggesting, I can't say I really saw this in the commentaries. It could be that there's a lot of discussion, but I didn't look that deeply. It could be something like this. Maybe they were hoping that there was going to be some kind of a form that Hashem would use to communicate to them. There was this lack.
It would seem logical that that Hashem would likely use another person. And this idea that you suggested, that had Aaron taken that position, and Moshe would come down and then get all upset. From the way Moshe has been described to me, it just doesn't seem that that's a trait of Moshe Rabbeinu. Like Aaron would say, I'm just trying to keep them at bay so that there isn't a...
It's true. I'm not disagreeing. Maybe we want to refer to the other line of Tosos, the Daskin Balatosos, that perhaps it was just again he was fearful that it would lead to this huge machlokes and it would come to bloodshed. Perhaps that's what it was. And again, just to relate back to your question, it could be that perhaps people were suggesting that there should be another leader, and perhaps he dissuaded them because he felt that the overriding factor was that was just going to lead to bloodshed. So it could be that.
Sense.
Yeah, so that could be. Now I will say it's interesting. The Hagionis Shel Torah Rav Zevin says something interesting about this concept of this void of leadership. So he says a statement that sounds very provocative. He says, "Ein kfira ba'olam." There's no such thing as a person being kofir, just not having any belief system. Rav Zevin suggests every person, every human being has an inherent, built-in need. Maybe he's just saying this on Yidden, that there's a need to have, that there's something that is controlling the world, the universe. Okay, so this could be, hopefully that it's towards the Ribbono Shel Olam, or Chalila, if a person doesn't have that leadership, so Chalila, the person might be misguided, and he's going to have some other kind of leader. He's going to believe in some kind of natural, it's science or some biological control of the universe. A person has an inherent need to have some kind of a manig, and Rav Zevin suggests that it was because of this that there was that this really was the mistake that Aaron made, because it seems that we have to say there clearly was some kind of, we don't take it lightly to suggest, the errors there, but perhaps he didn't understand that there was such a need to fill that void, that if they didn't have that leadership of Moshe, perhaps didn't understand how deeply was that need that needed to be filled. I'm going to skip number 5 for the sake of time. The Ibn Ezra just points out again, he just brings out the question even more so, how people could come to be so concerned that there is this lack of leadership. They didn't see man falling on Har Sinai. It was 40 days. How did he survive? Again, it just helps us understand how they couldn't possibly understand how Moshe was going to return. But the last mafarsh I want to see on this inyan here, the Malbim points out, and again getting back to the question before, when we have the Kal, the assembly, it really sounds like this is the whole nation, right? And perhaps we have these these aberrant visions in our mind from the way you may see a picture or something or some kind of image that's not Lafi our Mesorah on this. He says, the Malbim points out, this was the Erev Ravid work here. We're talking about 3,000 men out of a group of 600,000. So we're talking about half of 1% who were pushing this. So there are a couple of, I think, important Musar Haskills we could take from this. Number one, it's interesting to see how a few people can sway the masses, if they can put a bug in their head that something needs to be done. So you see, unfortunately, that sometimes we can be ill-influenced, or that even if we're not influenced, but the danger if we don't squash sometimes a certain zealousness that may seem on the outside to be a very appropriate thing, and yet it was totally off, and it should have been squashed. But we also see here another interesting hashkafa that you see also by Achan, it's recorded in Sefer Yeshua with the Battle of Ai and the spoils. There also you see a concept that there is a punishment to the nation and there is a castigation of the nation for something that perhaps only one individual does, or in this case, a half of 1% of the nation, and yet the Torah goes and refers to a sin of the nation. So you see here, there's this idea of communal responsibility that we have, and it can be very easy for us to, if there are problems in Klal Yisrael, so we point the finger and we say, well, it's because of this group or it's because of that group. One of the lessons perhaps we could take out, Musar Haskell, from this Maisa is that a Yid's responsibility when there are problems in Klal Yisrael, we always have to look inwards and we always have to see, I can't change other people. I have to look in myself and what can I do to change myself? What can I do as a Yid? Because really there is this responsibility, right? If there's a hisrashlis, to give an example, if there's a hisrashlis in Shmir Shabbos, people aren't keeping Shabbos, rather than point the finger and say these are the blames for our tzuras, maybe we can look up in ourselves and say, well, maybe I can try to reach out, and if I have a next door neighbor who's a Yid, and I can invite him for Shabbos, and I can try to help be mechazik Shabbos in that way, rather than just complain about those who are not, maybe I have some kind of responsibility to affect others, that should help out. So that's just perhaps a Musar Haskell to take. But I want to jump now quickly as time is running out. And talk about a beautiful idea that the Igros Moshe, not the Igros Moshe, but Moshe Feinstein in the Drash Moshe, he brings about jumping ahead when he talks about the writing of the second luchos, not the writing, but the etching of them. It's noted in the Torah that it's Salacha Shnei Luchos Avanim. Right, that you, Moshe, you yourself have to, you have to carve out the stones. Unlike the first luchos that were done, that was kulo maisa elokim. That was all done, so to speak, by the hand of God. Why this change to the second set of luchos? And Moshe amazingly makes the connection that it really was a reaction to what happened with the Chet Egel. Rav Moshe suggests that what was similar to the idea that we've been seeing till now, what was the chisaron in the nation? Again, he understands that there was a feeling of a lack, that we are not worthy. We're not worthy. We can't do it. The Torah is too great. It is too lofty. It is from another realm, another dimension. We don't have shaykhs. We don't have a connection to it. Kolzman, that there was Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, so Moshe, he was on another plane and he was able to bring it to us. But without Moshe, we're lost. We don't have any shaykhs to the Torah. And he explains that's another aspect perhaps to why they made this sin and why they felt they needed another leader. They needed it right away. They couldn't wait, right? And therefore Moshe says, it's interesting, amazingly, Hashem, so to speak, understood this, and therefore he made a change. And that's why the second set of luchos, he said, no, Moshe, you have to etch into the stone. Show Klal Yisrael now that this really is, Shemaim Shemaim Al Hashem, Nasan Livnei Adam, that the world is in your realm. Another shir we could, talk about all of the ideas of how you see that the Torah was given to man, that now we have a connection intimately with the Torah. The Torah is, so to speak, in our Daled Amos, in our domain. So this will be an excellent example to the nation to show them that now they have a shaykhus to the Torah. The Torah is in man's realm. And the fact that you were involved in the creation of the luchos, of etching into the stone, that will give this message to them. Now, if we have a couple of minutes just to end off with another beautiful machshava, if you'll allow me a couple more minutes. Another thing is interesting, when jumping around a little bit, but just an idea of the Shemen HaTov, contemporary, brings a beautiful question that before the luchos are destroyed, the first set of luchos, it mentions that the Torah goes into all of the description that they were Maisa Elokim, the beautiful stone that they were on, and then bam, and they're smashed. So the Shemona Tov asks, why doesn't the description of the Luchos come much earlier? Right? It's much earlier that we are introduced to the Luchos. Wouldn't that have been a more logical place to talk about the beauty and the grandeur of the Luchos? So the Shemona Tov suggests that a couple of things. First, he mentions it's just to show that Af al Pikein, nonetheless, even though they were so miraculous and all the miracles about the Luchos and they were so beautiful, but nonetheless they needed to be destroyed, number one. But number two, and this is a very important Musar Haskell, how often is it, he says, do we only appreciate something after it is gone? Right? It's only after we lose something. There's another tzushtal, another connection in the parsha we can make with neshama yisera. Right? Shavas vayinofash, also in the parsha, the question that the Baal Shem Tov says, why is it that Chazal are asking at this point that how do we know that there's a source for the Neshama Yisera at this point? Shavas vayinofash, he says, we should, I believe he's mentioning also to the fact that we talk about the Neshama Yisera Friday night, that we shouldn't wait until something is gone for us to appreciate. Let's talk about the Neshama Yisera not at the end of Shabbos when it's leaving. Let's talk about the Neshama Yisera at the beginning of Shabbos. Let's not wait till something leaves until we appreciate it. And I heard also in the name of a friend that he says this beautiful idea also as around the table, maybe some not yet parents, some parents, and perhaps some on the next generation of Nachas. But sometimes we know that, let's say if it's a Friday afternoon and for some reason the bathtub's overflowing and there are a couple of kids who are fighting and making a mess in a room that was just cleaned. Okay, so sometimes there are challenges in our lives. No, never in my house either. But sometimes in our lives it's let's say the challenge of raising children, or if it's grandchildren, or whatever it is, that we sometimes focus on the challenges, and perhaps, says our friend, we should look at not only the challenges, but say Baruch Hashem that we have these challenges and all of the beauty, and let's not wait till the children are out of the house for us to realize, hey, there was really something beautiful there. So again, this idea, perhaps to leave with, that we should appreciate what it is, what we have when we have it, and not wait for it to go. So another Musar Haskell we can learn from the Luchos Rishonos that some of the Mefarshim point out.